Hi guys, welcome to a video that I'm really excited to film because this video is where my reading tastes have been at lately, and that is a fantasy recommendations video, but not just your average fantasy recommendations video. We are going for a no spice recommendations video because that's the kind of fantasy I prefer to read. That is not the popular fantasy, and so a person like myself cannot just follow the popular fantasy, romantasy book recommendations and get what they want. And if you are like me and are struggling because you like fantasy, but you don't want to read a lot of spice or any, this is for you. I read a lot. I read really quickly. I read a lot of books that I start that I don't finish. These are some really great ones. I do have a couple, I think one or two other fantasy recommendations videos here on my channel if you want more ideas. There may be a little bit of overlap between these. I didn't go back and look to see which books I recommended in that video or those videos, but these are some of my absolute favorites. Some of them I just read this summer and they are excellent. They're like in the runnings for some of my favorite books. So let's dive into this amazing list. I think we're gonna start with what I'm thinking is probably the most popular one, but I need to highlight it in case you haven't read it. And I mean, he's always such a great author, and that is Tress of the Emerald Sea. This is like fantasy, borderline science fiction, which is okay. I'm okay if fantasy wants to toe that line. I was originally a science fiction girl before a fantasy girl, but in this one, it's loosely inspired by The Princess Bride, and I know the people that love The Princess Bride love this book, and people like myself who think The Princess Bride, I'm sorry guys if you love it, like I don't get it. I don't get it. Even if you didn't get it, don't like it like me, I still love this book and I think you will too. This is the story of Sanderson and his wife were watching The Princess Bride, and his wife was like, what if Buttercup didn't just stay home waiting for, what's his name, Wesley? What if she like went out and searched for him? So Sanderson wrote this story. So we follow Tress, whose love goes off and doesn't return, and instead of staying home, she goes and searches for him. This is like a pirate story. The sea that she goes on is not a sea of water. It is a sea of, I can't remember what it is now, spores? I always just imagined them like the bubble tea bubbles. I read this book via ebook. This was his first secret project released. I read it when it first came out. It had gorgeous illustrations. This one has gorgeous end papers and one illustration, I think. Love it. Such a great book. Funny, surprises throughout. This is set in Sanderson's Cosmere. You can start with this book. He does say in his video where he like recommends where to start with his books, he does say this is a potential starting point. I loved that I've read a bunch of his other books in the Cosmere and there was some Easter eggs in here, but like all his books have Easter eggs, so you can really start anywhere. Loved Tress, highly recommend it. It is a fantasy with no spice. I mean, Tress is searching for her love for most of the book. That's the whole premise. I definitely recommend it if you haven't read it already. Where do we go from there? This is, I'm just going through my stack and wondering where to next. Let's pivot. Let's go Victorian England, fantasy, dragons, if those are your kinds of buzzwords. I'm going to recommend Wormwood Abbey. Now this is I think it's going to be a 5-book series. It's not quite done yet. Book 4 just came out, but they're all like novellas under 200-ish pages, or actually possibly number 4 and number 5 is a bit longer, but it's a quick little series. And this has the Gothic Victorian vibes with fantasy and dragons thrown in. So our main character is a clergyman's daughter in Victorian England, and her father inherits his childhood home estate thing. And there are some peculiar things that go on in this estate. He has always told his kids stories that he saw a dragon, but he imagined that like, because dragons don't exist, right? Well, they head there and do they exist? what I love is that Edith is, you know, she's a Victorian lady, but she secretly writes mystery novels under a pen name. And I love that she's not a full-on feminist, because that just gets annoying, but she has some spunk and creativity, and I love watching her kind of like not tell people that she writes mystery stories, and I've loved it. I've read the first 3 books, 3 so far. Definitely plan on continuing the series. I guess I didn't really mention the love interest I get, but it's there. It's there. It's low-key, slow burn, but it's there. Okay, let's throw some fae into the mix now. I read this book at the beginning of the year, the second book in this duology. Is it a duology? I always second guess myself. Is coming out later this year, and that is Mortal Queens by Victoria McCombs. This is set in a world where there are 5 islands, and a girl from the center of the 5 islands gets chosen each year to be the queen of the fae, and she gets taken into the fae world. And our main character in this one gets chosen this year, and we go with her to the fae world and find out that things are not as they seem. There is, like, I mean, if you know the general story of fae and their personalities, they're a little bit conniving and self-centered, and there are some secretive things going on that are revealed throughout. I flew through this book, and book 2 is called Lethal Kings, which, I mean, I already wanted to read it more, wanted to read book 2, but the title makes me want to read it more. So very excited to finish this. Thoroughly enjoyed it. If you like dark secrets and fae and those types of tropes, things going on, I think you'll really enjoy this one. Okay, this one is potentially going to be my absolute favorite fiction book of the year. It's gonna be in the top. I read it last month, and it's The Heir and the Spare by Kate Stradling. This book blew me out of the water, and I already went into it thinking I was going to give it 5 stars. Normally, if I feel like a book is going to be good, I'm disappointed. And I thought this one was going to be good, and I had no idea. So in this one, we follow a second-born princess who has always had a tumultuous relationship with her sister, to put things mildly. She went away to a school in the neighborhood kingdom for a couple of years, but she wasn't allowed to tell people that she was a princess. She had to go as, like, in disguise as this, like, peasant girl, and the people in the school treat you based on where you are, where your status is. So because she was the bottom of the barrel, she got treated like the bottom of the barrel. And now the guy that was the biggest bully in her childhood is going to be marrying her sister, who she also fairly hates. And I knew going into it that, okay, yeah, they're doing some construction outside, so there might be more noises like that out loud. Because I had read the first paragraph or sentence when I put this on my TBR. It says, only 2 people had to die for Princess Iona to become queen. Her father, King Gawain, an aloof figure whose passing she would one day mourn, and her older sister Lizen, whose grave she would gladly dance on should the occasion arise. What does it take to dance on somebody's grave? It takes a lot, but I didn't realize how much. There's a lot going on. This book has, like, super high stakes tropes that, if I say them, kind of give things away, but I do not think you'll be disappointed. I will say it is pretty dark. I'll give warning for that, but that makes the light even better. Next up, we'll go with a book that I read a long time ago, pre-booktube days. I think this one is a retelling of a fairy tale, and that is The Goose Girl by Shannon Hale, and there is a short fairy tale called The Goose Girl. In this one, we follow another princess. She's the crown princess, and she is supposed to be going to be married in a foreign land. That's right. And on her way there, her lady-in-waiting and a bunch of her guards turn on her, and her lady-in-waiting takes her place and is going to go marry this prince or king or whatever of this neighboring land. And we follow our main character as she struggles to try to figure out how to explain that she's actually the princess, not this person that is wearing her crown and has all the bodyguards that say she's the princess. I got a little annoyed in this book in the best of ways. I just wanted to go there and like fight for our main character and wanted to stand up for her, but I really like what Shannon Hale did with this. This is a series and I've never really continued it. I don't think I've read book 2. I've always meant to, but I feel like they probably couldn't live up to this one, so I've left it there. Should I continue with this? If you've read it, should I? Is it good? Let me know. Moving along, this is another one that I read this summer and loved it. 5 stars. Everyone else has loved it, pretty much given it 5 stars, and so I knew going in that I should love it, but it blew me away. That is Heart of Red, Blood of Blue. Once again, we follow another princess. There's definitely a theme here. This princess is an albino, and she's like, I don't know, kid number 5 or something, but her family, her siblings are slowly getting killed off, and she's getting closer and closer to being the one that will inherit the crown. When she was 7, she was betrothed to the prince of the neighboring kingdom, and during that betrothal ceremony, the prince died. A huge war broke out. The prince was murdered. Lots of things going on. So now there's this huge war between these two countries. And there is a man named Bloodless Christoph who is slowly killing off her siblings and, you know, is out to get her. So that's really hard and dark. On top of it all, her father is now going to marry her off to this terrible king of a different neighboring kingdom. There are some high stakes, and I really enjoyed our main character. I loved her personality. She went through so much growth in this book. I love to see that in a story, so another one I highly recommend. This list is honestly just the best of the best. Okay, let's do another fairy tale retelling before I get to the last one. This is a bind-up of 3 fairy tales. This is Once, but it has Before Midnight, Golden, and Wild Orchid in there. So we've got a retelling of Cinderella, where, you guys, the evil stepmother has my name. Like, no one is ever named Chantel. And then when I get someone named after me, it's the evil stepmother. It's okay, it's okay. I loved what Cameron Doki did with this retelling. She took the Cinderella story that we all know and love, but she took it into a different place, and I loved it even more. Then we've got Golden, which is the story of Rapunzel. Major twists going on in that one. And then we've got Wild Orchid, which is the Mulan story, which I've never really enjoyed that one, but once again, some twists going on, enjoyed the story. So they're all about 200 pages long or so in here. Yeah, approximately 200 pages long. So they're pretty short. It looks a little bit more intimidating, but this is 3 stories. And I know she has a second bind-up. It's called Kissed, that has 3 more stories. I haven't read those yet, but it's on my list to find. And the last book is The Eternity Gate. This is part of a duology, and the second book is coming out in September. So in this one we follow Seo. She is a handmaiden to the princess. And in this world, everyone has this power, a gift, that they have the gift of light, so they can, you know, have light in their palms. But Seo has a secret, and that is that her gift is actually of fire, which is something that a different kingdom has and is not, it's very much frowned upon. So she's keeping this a secret. So she's got that secret. Then she translates a prophecy warning that this eternity gate that people have been looking for doesn't actually hold a treasure, but a major judgment. And then someone entrusts her with this key to this eternity gate and disappears. so she has to figure out what to do with it. This is another high stakes book, and I just finished the second book last month. I got the advanced reader copy. I've given this one 5 stars. I gave that one 5 stars. Highly recommend them. Highly recommend every single one of these books, you guys. I have just gone hard into fantasy, and I have read so many great ones. It's unbelievable. So if you guys have some great no spice fantasy recommendations, leave them in the comments. I would always like to check out more. And I also do have those other videos if you want more from me as well. Or if you guys are interested in no spice recommendations in a different genre other than fantasy, let me know, because I would be more than willing to make that as well. I will see you guys in another video soon.